I already know you all are going to be judging me because last week we didn't have a car and this week we don't have coffee. Um, I know, so terrible of me. Just yell at me now through your phone. But this week's water, right? Especially because I'm not sure if you can hear it on the mic, but it is actually raining outside today and it was raining yesterday. So I really just don't have any encouragement to go get coffee, especially since the last two times I think I've had coffee from home. So today's episode is actually something that is really big right now because of Ren and Jacqueline on TikTok. I'm not sure if you've seen them or heard of them, but it's really big right now. But so the topic of discussion is child influencers and their blogger parents. I know the typical term is mommy bloggers, but when you use this, you're also discrediting any of the dads who are involved in their child influencer lifestyles. For example, the Ace family, and I'm blanking on their name, but Everly is the main and first daughter of that blogger family as well. So, with all of that being said, that is actually the topic today. It is something that I am very passionate about, and I will fully admit that I think I'm passionate about it because of my goddaughter and her sister. And so they are both in close age to not Everly, but close age to the rest of these kids that are in this lifestyle, especially since they live out in California. It puts them in close proximity to this relationship and to this lifestyle, which is why I personally think I'm so passionate about this topic. So for the by the numbers, there's going to be two areas. This is your forewarning now. We are going to be talking about children's mental health. We're going to be talking about child predators. And then we're going to get into all the examples of how these parents are basically able to be walking around all of this, right? So that is your forewarning and your trigger warning now. If you don't feel comfortable about it, I obviously am not going to hold you against not listening to this episode or watching this episode. But all that being said, let's get into it. So, child influencers and their blogger parents. First, the child influencer mental health. It is said by a psychologist at the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Susan Albers, children are at high risk for mental health disorders, anxiety, depression, and addiction when they miss key developmental phases of their childhood. When they are working as kid influencers, they face an enormous amount of pressure, the pressure to be liked and entertaining. So, right out the gate, literally linking all these possible developmental delays and developmental mental issues that they can face when they're facing being a child influencer and a child star. I'm going to be using child star and child influencer interchangeably because I feel like a lot of these things we saw with child stars, and it's definitely going to apply to child influencers in the future, especially since it's such a newer concept. I think this parallels child stars a lot, in my personal opinion, when you're looking at the development of them now, especially. I mean, we're talking about this because YouTube started in like 2006, right? And so when you talk about 2006 as a starting point for YouTube, not a lot of people were doing family vlogging in 2006. It definitely is a newer concept. And when I say newer, like within the past 10 years, really. While child stars have been around for ages. Like you look at Home Alone, I don't remember the exact year that came out, but that was a child star. You look at Lindsay Lohan, she was a child star. And you have all these people who are now adults, and you're seeing the effects of child stardom, really with all of them. Drew Barrymore is another example. So, yes, I'm really considering child influencers to have the same track as child stars when I am looking at all of this. So, there is a ResearchGate study that I will put in the description called kidfluencing, the mental impacts of posting on social media can have on children and parents, how social media presence can have mental impacts on children and parents. So, according to a study completed in 2010, more than 90% of 2-year-olds in the United States already had an online presence. Yes, you heard me say that correctly. 2-year-olds is in 24-month-olds. 24 months out the womb, and 90% of them had a presence on social media or online for that matter. When a child is spending most of their time working and producing videos, they start to miss out on key elements of their childhood, such as proper socialization with other children and their age, education, and ability to garner a sense of independence. In McGinnis 2020 points out, child influencers are exploited in several areas, such as missing out on school and sports activities, losing the time for socializing as normal children, and suffering psychological harm. So basically, these parents take them out of school, they take them, if anything, they do homeschooling for these children so that they can have 24/7 access to their child as entertainment for their following and for them for that matter. Nothing wrong with homeschooling, just they are taken out at such a young age to basically garner a personality, a personal brand, if you will, online, rather than taking them out so that you are able to control their educational process. They are being taken out for social media, which is something that has a very big developmental association with it. And so with that, according to an article from Harvard's Developing Child Division in 2022, so pretty recent, struggling with prolonged and severe stress in childhood has the potential to have mental and physical consequences later in life, such as mental delays, heart disease, diabetes, substance abuse, and depression. When a parent is too involved with social media and the social aspects of their parenting, their relationship with their children can be heavily strained. Some research indicates that increased social media use can create less family communication and have negative impacts on certain parent-child relationships. So I feel like an example that you can give for this is, say, a video doesn't do as well as a parent wants, they may blame their child for that. Of course, we don't live with these people, so we don't know that for certain. But it can be a direct parallel to compare this to, or an example to give it to. And so now is the not so pretty part. Even though the previous part wasn't as pretty, this is online child predators by the numbers. This is a very disturbing amount of statistics. I will forewarn you with that. But it is all from legaljobs.io. The latest online predator statistics of 2023, so literally this past year, shows that 500,000 predators are a daily threat to kids on the internet. So they are scrolling daily to find these kids and find situations that they can put themselves in to be predators or be predatory. Internet usage among 3 to 4-year-olds dramatically doubled within the past 5 years. So literally, again, 3 to 4-year-olds, they don't even know how to make complete sentences, right? They speak broken English, if you will, because they're learning to speak. Not always broken English, but broken language, whatever language that their parents speak. So they're not even forming whole entire sentences, and they have doubled in their presence online in the past 5 years. Online predator reports increased by 106% early in the COVID-19 pandemic. So literally doubled, if you will. I'm not sure if I said that properly. I'm sure people will correct me if I didn't. Threats from strangers to kids online concern 58% of U.S. parents, and 53% of offenders were family members, and over 80% of child sex crimes arise from social media. So all of these stats are very alarming and very concerning, I'm sure, for any listener, let alone the fact when I was doing the research for this episode, it was very concerning for me to read, because you look at all of these statistics and you're like, oh my gosh, I never want my child or my godchild or my friend's child to have social media when you look at these numbers. It's a very scary fact. And so when you look at all these facts, you wonder to yourself, why do parents put their children in this position in the first place? And one of the main reasons is money. To be completely honest, it is money. You look at the industry and you see how much money people are able to make. They're able to make a whole entire living off of putting their family on social media, right? And they're able to get brand deals that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're able to get trips sometimes that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for their family through an app. The main three being TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, really, if we're looking at it. Because Twitter, it has its own place, but it's very odd for family blogging, if you will. But YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram really being the main three pillars in family blogging. Of course, do I have stats to back this up right here in this moment? No, but I can say with the utmost certainty, especially because you see really these family bloggers primarily post on YouTube, and then even garner a lot of views on TikTok. So, with all of that being said, a lot of this episode inspiration came from a TikToker in particular. Her name is Jacqueline. Her daughter's name is Ren Eleanor. The fact that she put her own daughter's middle name on social media is kind of wild to me, because you may be able to hide your last name, but it in reality, it doesn't take a stalker all that much to find a last name. Especially with a name as, I don't want to use the word peculiar, because it's actually a very beautiful name. A name like Ren Eleanor. I don't know that many Wrens, and especially a Ren Eleanor, right? So, this particular account has 17 million followers, and I can't even show you through the TikTok app because she actually has blocked me. I have never interacted with her account. Never have. Obviously never will, since I'm now blocked. But she has me blocked, and the only way I can really account it to is I made one video, but it only got around like 200 views, so there's no way that she saw that one video. But I commented on a highly viewed video that really looked into how much money the account was making via the Creativity Beta program. And so, if you are not aware of the Creativity Beta program, I will actually educate you on the Creativity Beta program in this little rant, if you will. So, the Creativity Beta program, it's offered in a decent amount of countries, but not all countries. The United States is primarily the only one. And so, one of the top rules is that you have to be over the age of 18. The account owner has to be over the age of 18 to garner money from the Creativity Beta program. Another rule is it has to be over a minute in length. It has to be your own sound. So, for example, you can't make a 1-minute music video to say like Charlie Puth and make money off of that, because technically you're using Charlie Puth's likeness to help garner some of those views. So it has to be your own organic original content. So that is just some of the rules with the Creativity Beta program. But I say mommy bloggers, but parents have the workaround, because they will create the account in their name, but the only content that they post is of their child. To which I think this should not be a workaround that is allowed. If I'm being very blunt and very honest, I don't think it should be allowed as a workaround. Because you are not creating your own name, image, and likeness. You are using your name to get the money from the app, but then you are using your child's name, image, and likeness for views and likes on the page. You can tell I get very heated about this because I'm like shaking in my voice because of the anger I feel. because I know my goddaughter's parents, and I personally, and no one in my family would ever personally put my goddaughter in the position that Jacqueline has put her daughter Ren in. I get very agitated about it. So, the problem with Ren's page, and I'm going to say Ren because it is Ren's page, Jacqueline posts maybe one video out of every 15 are her, and just her. And you can tell by the views and by the likes and by the saves and by the comments that she does not get as much recognition on this page as her daughter, because she has created it as her daughter's page just under her name so that she can get the money, right? So, even more rules about the Creativity Beta program is videos that are ineligible for the For You feed do not have primarily For You feed generated views are not eligible for the Creativity Beta program. So, I learned this recently from one of my videos. I don't even want to call it blowing up because it only had around 25,000 views or something. But that video in particular only had a very small percentage associated with the For You feed. It was actually a lot based off of search. So when people search for something, my video came up. And so it was not For You generated. Therefore, it was not, what's the word I'm trying to look for? It was not eligible for the Creativity Beta program. So, some of you may be saying right now to your phones, well, how do you know that she gets For You, the For You feed eligibility? So she actually, before I got blocked, she was showing that her analytics, a lot of her views were coming from the For You feed. Therefore, those videos were eligible via the For You criteria. So, what the For You feed is, there's 4 rules as to what makes it eligible and ineligible. I should say what makes it ineligible to be on the For You feed. There's 4 things: behavioral health, sensitive and mature themes, integrity and authenticity, and regulated goods. So, these 4 items can make it non-eligible for the For You feed, therefore uneligible for the Creativity Beta program, which is the only way you can make money from TikTok when it comes to your views and your viewership. You can make money from TikTok Shop or brand deals. I'm specifically talking about from TikTok and your viewership. So, nowhere in these rules does it outline child content. Therefore, the parents get an allowance to create pages under their name, but primarily have their child as the content. And so, also in these rules, if you noticed, it doesn't say anything about suggestive content not being allowed on the For You feed. So, therefore, if you take a look at this page, there are plenty of videos that she allows and does suggestive content with her child or towards her child. One of the examples is the honey video where she is squeezing the honey out, and the honey is a soft object as it is coming out of the water bottle in front of her daughter's face. Another thing is, for example, her daughter has a piece of corn in her face. And so you look at these innocently until you have someone in your life that is that age, and you see it opens your eyes to a whole new world, really. I feel for all the people that are telling me BS right now, because I was right there with you until I had my cousin, who is currently 6, and her sister, which is my goddaughter. Until I had those 2 in my life, I would have been on your side saying people are overreacting, people are the people who are saying it's being sexualized are the ones sexualizing it. I would have been on your side until those 2 came into my life. And it opened my eyes to a whole new world of the predators that are online and how they will take anything that is remotely shaped as something suggestive, and if you give them an inch, they take a mile type of scenario. And so that is where a lot of the concern comes from when it comes to this page in particular. And she's not the only one. She is a martyr in a sense, for all of these parents who post suggestive content of their children. She's a martyr. But it is something to note, especially when she has such a large following of 17 million followers. And something else worth noting is that the save count is significantly higher on these particular videos as well. And what is concerning primarily is the fact that you look at these and you think to yourself, oh, let me comment, like maybe she doesn't recognize this, and your comment gets you blocked, is what a lot of people are sharing on the app right now, is their experience with this person in particular, and also other people on the app that are doing the same thing with their children. So, with all of that being said, I don't want to spend any more time giving this woman the time of day that she obviously is very much so craving, to continue to make that type of content for her daughter. But so what we need to turn to is, what are we doing now and what are we doing in the courtrooms to protect these children? Because they are being exploited. No matter what you say or what your opinion is, they are being exploited, because exploitation comes from the fact of you are taking something. I'm going to pull up the definition of exploitation so that I don't get any angry people in my comments. So, it's the utilization of another person or group for selfish purposes. Quite literally, this is what is happening with children and children influencers, or kidfluencers, as a lot of these pages like to call it. That is the literal definition of what is happening, is exploitation, because the children are being utilized for their image, not necessarily their name, because some of them aren't as well known. So not even specifically talking about this one mom, just children in general are being used for selfish purposes. And that selfish purpose is making money and getting fame and getting recognition on a large scale. And so when you look at all of this, it's by definition exploitation of the children, because they literally don't have a say in what they can and cannot be a part of, because especially when they aren't even able to talk, for example. It's literally exploitation. So what are we doing to protect the kids? Right now, the only state in all of the United States of America, the only state is Illinois that has a law in place for the protection of these kids. In Illinois, what they have required is that it requires adult vlogs featuring minors in their online content to place money in a trust fund that they can access at 18 years old. So basically requiring the parents that have created this content of these children to set aside money, any money that they make from their child, into a trust fund, because that child is the reason that they've earned that money. So Illinois is the only state, unfortunately, out of all 50 that actually has a law in place for this. But Ohio, Maryland, California, Georgia, Missouri, and Arizona are trying to introduce legislation that entitles the child influencers to a certain amount. And so, for example, in Ohio, it's called the Kidfluence Protection Act. And it aims to create regulation for kid influencers to ensure they're properly compensated for their labor, because it is child labor, and we have child labor laws in the United States. So therefore, influencing is a type of labor. It's people, I know that it goes into this whole question of, is being an influencer actually a job? It is, especially when you have a child doing it. When you make money off of it, it's a form, and you are putting money and time in, or not money, when you're putting time into it, it can be considered a job. So basically it's helping create regulation. So I'm going to read this whole entire spiel. In what seems like an indication of a tide change over the last month, this was posted in February of this year, I believe. The 6 states, as I previously listed, Maryland, California, Georgia, Missouri, Ohio, and Arizona, have introduced legislation that would mirror Illinois' groundbreaking legislation that entitled child influencers under the age of 16 to at least 30% of the adult vloggers' compensated video content produced within a 30-day period, included the likeness, name, or photograph of the minor if the content meets a certain monetization threshold. So I didn't look into the specifics of the monetization threshold, but my guess is this is like just a start, obviously. And you see the really, really, really big bloggers, the really big family bloggers, attempting to move out of these states. It's actually very interesting. It opens my eyes, in my opinion. I don't remember the name of the family, Everly's family. But when this was being introduced, I noticed that they moved to Tennessee. Which is just very interesting in my opinion. And something to note about the fact that legislation is trying to protect and compensate these children for the labor and for the exploitation that is happening. And I do unfortunately think it'll just be a situation where parents will literally move to states that don't have legislation to protect the children if they really are in it for the money, which a lot of them, unfortunately, it does seem to be that fact. And I could go on for hours about my personal opinions about this. So maybe since we're only at 28 minutes, I will. So here's my thing. You can go through any page, any person. There are people who have actually chosen to take their kids off the internet. I'm blanking on the lady's name. But she decided to make a formal statement on her TikTok about taking her child off of the internet. Sorry, I'm typing it right now. Taking child off internet. Maya also did this many years ago at this point. Maya, who had twins, she jokingly called them Scotch and Vodka, but it was Scout and Violet. She had twins, and she got really big over quarantine, showing her kids and just making jokes and being a funny mommy blogger. But she actually made the decision to take her kids off of the internet, and she actually got a lot of backlash for doing that, which in hindsight I do think is very odd, because she's really attempting to protect her kids, right? She's seeing what is happening with children. She's seeing the potential that it has to harm her children in the future. So she's really taking a step back by removing her kids off the internet, even if that means she loses followers And I respect her for that. I do know that she got a lot of backlash, but I think it was really misinterpreted backlash, if you will, and very ill-informed and ill-willed backlash, because she's protecting her children at the end of the day, which is, as a parent, what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to protect your child, especially from child predators that are on these apps. And so she was one of the first, really, that I saw take her child off the internet. But there was another mom very recently, I can't believe I can't find her, that decided to take her kid off of the internet because she was getting messages from people that weren't just like, oh my gosh, I love your content. It was like, I want your daughter to marry my son, and your daughter is so beautiful, from like full grown men. And men are not the only predators out there. Before I'm going to get a head start on that. Men are not the only predators out there, but I will say it would be very creepy if you had a daughter and you received a message from a stranger complimenting the beauty of your child. And I want to say the child isn't even a year old. She's like 8 months or something. But so she took her child off the internet. And people are actually praising her for it in light of the other mother, Jacqueline, just completely ignoring people expressing concern. And I see that my battery says it's dead, so I'm going to wrap this up by saying, do your own research. Obviously, my research isn't the end-all be-all, but at the end of the day, I think protecting children is the very first thing that we should be doing, especially on these social media apps when you know the numbers. As I stated previously, the numbers of predators and the harms social media can have on these children when they are focused in a family blogger style content realm, let alone social media realm in general. So I understand that this was a very heavy topic, but it was something that I felt like was very needed, especially with the way my For You page is looking right now. And so, yeah, I hope you all have a nice day. Like, comment, subscribe, leave however many stars you think I deserve. But at the end of the day, protect your kids. And I hope you all have an amazing day.